Kia ora ngā hoa. On today's video, we're going to be making a simple helicopter toy. Now, it doesn't look like much, but it does work if you tune it properly, and I'm going to show you how to tweak it and all that kind of stuff, as well as the build part of it. So if you think that's like your kind of thing, and you want to make another kind of flying toy, stick around, and I'll see you in the video. So, the things that you're going to need is, I'll just break it down for you and show you here so you can actually see what it's all about. So you're going to need at least 4 paper clips. You're going to need at least 3 rubber bands. It's always good to have a few extra because there's going to be some that are going to snap, depending on how much tension that they're able to handle. But for the actual completed one, you're going to need at least 3. You're going to need an old coffee cup. I find that works best, coffee cup, because the cardboard's nice and light. You're going to need a straw. Now I'm going to be a little bit specific about the straw. You could use probably any old straw, but it works best with one of these giant Frappuccino straws that you get from the cafe. So what I'd convince is, Mum, I need to do some science. Let's go get a coffee and you can grab me a nice iced chocolate at the same time, because I need the materials to do some science. That's how you sell it to them, children. That's how you sell it to them. Because the Frappuccino straw works better because they're a bit thicker, and they also are a lot wider as well. So they can there's a lot of room in there for your 3 rubber bands. The other thing you're going to need is a broken pen at home, and a little bit of tape and a hot glue gun if you've got it. You could also go and buy some super glue, but a hot glue gun would work much better, you can see, because you can really stick stuff on there. Now, I'll explain what the broken pen is for later. So, we're going to break it down into all its parts now, and we're going to crack straight into it. So, the first thing we want to do is we want to draw a basic outline of a propeller shape. Now you can see here I've got a pointed edge. I'm not fussed about the actual hard out shape, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But you do need a pointed end and you do need a flat end. The flat end is going to be the bit where the two join together, and also the flat spot where they join onto the straw itself. Then what I'll do is, once I've cut that one out, I'll use one of them as a template and redo the same thing again, because I need 4 propellers, because I've got my top and my bottom. Okay, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second too. So let's get into it. I'm going to do a time lapse. I'm just going to come back once I've done all 4 propellers. Stick around. So I've got my 4 propellers now, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get a thumbtack, and I'm just going to pierce a hole in them, and this is where my first paper clip's going to come in handy. So I'm going to go preheat my my hot glue gun at the same time. And just to basically say, and I'm going to get started, is you're going to pierce a hole through there and then push the paper clip through to the other side, and that's going to hold everything together. So I've got most of the components that I actually need to construct. Now what I'm up to is the assembly stage, where I put all of my little pieces together. Now, like I said, you're going to need a broken pen, and the reason you need a broken pen, or a pen that doesn't have any ink in it anymore, don't use a normal pen because your parents are just going to get mad at you. So get a pen that doesn't work anymore. Ask the folks, and it really needs to be something like a pen like this. And these are pens people give away from companies all the time, and so they're pretty easy to get hold of, because we want this bit at the end, the cone part of the pen, and we also want the I'm not sure what you would call that bit, the trigger of the pen. And so here's some I've already prepared, and so this is the cone part here, and then this is the trigger. And what I've done is I've just got a hacksaw and just carefully cut it down to make it about half the size. And then what I've done with this bit sorry, excuse me, is I've drilled a tiny little hole with a tiny drill bit. What you could do is you could probably, with a parent's help, you could really carefully push through with a pin, but I did this with a really tiny drill bit and that works just fine. So with these bits, the first thing that's going to happen is this is going to go through here like that, okay, and it has, if you look at it, this bit is facing up that way, and then my cone is going to go the opposite direction, and this is going to help give a nice prevent friction building up, because if there's too much friction the rotor won't even turn, and you need to trust Mr. Ashley on this, because it took us about 3 or 4 different versions just to get to the stage where we could figure out something that would allow it to spin freely. Now, I've used an entire paper clip on this bit, and now what we need to do is cut off the excess, okay? And if you've got like a Leatherman or something like that, that's perfect. So I'm just going to cut off the excess carefully, like that. And then what I'm going to do is this bit here, I'm going to just bend it ever so slightly. Well, I'm actually going to bend it all the way around because I need there to be a hook in the end, which is going to be the bit that my rubber bands grip onto. And you want to bend it right round as much as you can, so it's like that. So now that I've got that bit done, I'm going to go through the whole assembly stage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to thread my rubber bands now. So I'm just going to go to time lapse to help speed up the whole video, and I'm just going to clearly show it on the screen so you can follow along. So I'm up to the tuning part now. So what you can see, what you hopefully saw in the time lapse is I've got 3 paper clips here. Only one of them holds the tension of the rubber bands. The other 3 help to even out the weight distribution. And what we've done is, over trial and error, even like a minute amount of weight to one side or the other affects the flight pattern. So, and what I mean by that is if it's too heavy on one side, it's going to go that way, and if it's too heavy the other way, it's going to go that way too. So now when I say tune, the bottom rotor blades have to be at a 45-degree angle, like I showed you in the time lapse earlier on in the construction phase, but the upper rotor blades have to be at a 45-degree angle in the opposite direction. So for instance, these that way, which means the top rotor has to be that way. And the reason is when you fly this, believe it or not, and you'll see it when you have a turn of your own and you make this, the rotors are turning in 2 opposing directions, and this is why it works so well, because you're getting double the lift. Now, the rubber band is making the rotor blade spin this way, whereas the tension from the rotor blade, from the rubber band at the opposite end, is making the entire straw spin in the other direction. So what basically is happening is it's going like that. Does that make? Hopefully that makes sense. It goes like that. I just asked a question to my iPad. Does that make sense? Yes, it does, Mr. Ashley. So when you also wind it up, you've got to remember, take into account what way you want the rotor blade to turn. So for this one, and think about how you want to wind it depending on how you've configured your rotor blades. And so you just wind it up like this. Now, because the top rotor blade on this one is in this direction, like that, I want to wind it going that way. And you might want to and you can see how, I'm winding it that way. So when the bottom one spins, you can see it. Those are the bits that's the bit that's going to generate the lift. Because if you wind it backwards, as soon as you throw it up in the air, it's going to go, because the force is, you've wound it so it's pulling itself down instead of lifting itself up. So we're going to go outside now and give it a test fly. So hopefully you enjoyed that video. It was a really simple thing to make. I know there's a few steps to it, but once you figure it out, you can make them all the time. They're really, really easy to fly. The most expensive part probably is the coffee cup, but you could make it out of any cheap $2 shop cup you get. You could make it out of a plastic water cooler cup. That would work just as well, and it'd probably be a little bit more resilient and sturdy than the cardboard cup. So yeah, $5 and a nice coffee and a cool toy out of this. So yeah, if you like this video, please hit like. It'd be great if you share these ideas, because the whole idea is to share your learning and fun with other people. So be sure and share this video with somebody else that you think might enjoy this as much as I have enjoyed making it for you and you've enjoyed watching it. But for now, ka kite. I'll see you next time on Mr. Ashley's place, and we'll go back to doing things with some pegs. So stay tuned.